a beautiful piece made by Sue Baitens. Hi everyone, welcome back to Fun with 4 and 9 patches. And so I hope you got a chance to make a lot of 4 patches and 9 patches, because there are lots of ways to play with them. But the first thing I want to cover with you is a great way to add structure and design to blocks that need something more. And that is with insertions. And I covered insertions in the free cut piecing video, so you might want to go back and review that, but we're going to do it quickly again today. And you see, I did it on this little block, but I'm going to do it on this larger block today. So if you remember, with insertions, I'm going to do an X on this block, but it doesn't have to be an X. You could insert fabric here. You can insert it all 4 sides, which we're going to do in a little bit. Or for some quilts, just putting in 2 might be all the structure you need to take a blah design to something exciting. I always like X's, so I'm going to insert an X in this block. Oh, I hope this is a good blade. I didn't check first. So if you remember, to do an insertion, we're going to just stick a chunk of fabric under here and make sure that, that you've got 2 layers of fabric here. And I'm just going to follow this same curve. Actually, on an X, you need to add, I'm going to put a little notch here, but you need a little extra. So I've done that at an angle there. You need something to let you know where to start and stop sewing. All right, and then the goal with free cut piecing is to sew, with insertions, is to sew this larger chunk of fabric onto your unit, which I will do quickly here. And remember, with free cut piecing, it's somewhere between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch. The tighter your curve, the smaller, whoops, that was odd. The tighter the curve, the smaller the seam allowance you need. So now I'm going to put my other piece on and decide what it is that I'd like to see in my final piece. And it is helpful to pay some attention to, you'll see when you do this, it can be a little tricky knowing where to exactly how to lay this back on a thing like this. So, geez, I kind of like that. So you see what you'd like to see in your final piece, and then scooch it out that between 1/8 of 1/4 of an inch. Now you see at this end how I allowed for that I didn't do up there. I should have. And then with all free cut piecing techniques, you grab it where they should meet up and flip it over and run over to the sewing machine. The machine's behaving a little oddly. It's doing a zigzag in here. I probably should turn it off and turn it on and see if that corrects the problem. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat that by cutting this way and get this nice X on top of here. So I will be back in a minute and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've finished that up. I did want to caution you something I didn't explain well. When you are doing those pieces, allow a little extra out there, because when you want to cut this into a square, you need some fabric there. You see, I did not do that well at this end because I haven't done this for a little while, but I think this side will be okay. It's just something to think about when you're working. And you can see that insertions can add a really strong design element onto a boring unit. And if you explore this, it doesn't have to be straight lines. It can be, you can do circular things. I mean, you can do so much with these, and I'll try to show some examples of that in a future video. Okay, so now next, grab your 4 patches. And these are 4 patches that I stacked on top of each other and recut twice. So it takes them from, you know, a pretty ordinary kind of a block into something more interesting. Oh, and all of these techniques too, you can also take your block and stack it on top of plain fabric and do the same thing. And that's something you might want to think about if you're making a charity quilt, or you need to make a quilt in a hurry because there's less piecing involved, but your pieces will all coordinate as the fabrics get mixed up together. Okay, so we're going to take these guys, and first we're going to, I think right here, we're going to cut them here, and then just mix and match these pieces together like this. I know it's boring watching me sew, but I'm afraid if I don't show you the process, it may not be super clear. Pressing is always a good idea. And then I'm going to do this again here. I'm just going to do this 2 cuts like this. And so when I sew these together, you're going to see I'm going to get some interesting blocks like that are, I hope you can see that are pretty interesting. Okay, so I will do that, and then I will be back, and I hope you go and try this, and I'll be back in a minute with these finished, and then we're going to move on to exploring with some 9 patches. Okay, I'm quite happy with how these turned out. I think there could be all kinds of fun. If I repeated this many times, I think there could be some very interesting secondary patterns formed here that I'd have to make more to figure that out, but there could be some interesting patterns that form. You never know, because this is a very serendipitous process. And this example are me stacking up 2 9 patches with it and doing those off-centered cuts, and I really like these too. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 9 patches, and we're going to do 4 cuts. And so we'll end up with something like this by stacking up 2 blocks and doing fairly straight cuts. And I think the sequence in which you make the cuts does matter, but I can't remember. So when I did the sample pieces, I cut one at a time, switched them, sewed them back on, and then I did this side, then this side, then this side, and this side for this kind of an effect. And you can do this to get pretty skinny, fun lines here. Maybe on this video I can try to see if I can do that speed up technique and actually just sew it all. Well, I can see on some designs, I guess I would do it more than once. Okay, so we've got these two guys, and then I'm going to go to the opposite side and repeat that process. And then I'm going to sew those back on, and I'm going to do it again at the top and the bottom. And I will come back and show you what that does. And I hope you're following along, and we'll do this along with me and make some beautiful blocks. Okay, I will see you back in a minute. Hi, I'm really happy with how these came out. I like them a lot. So for the next exploration, we're going to do the same thing, except that we're going to add insertions in, so that we'll get something more like this. And you can see this block, because I added fabric in, it got bigger in size. So when you go to put if you were to do both techniques in one quilt, then you'd want to add some kind of fun fabric on the outside. Free cut pieced on, you know, where you'd put your block over and just see, even if you're trying to do a straight line, most people are going to introduce a slight curve into it, and I love those slight curves. I think they add a lot of grace to quilt making. Okay, so grab another set of 9 patches, and here's the other one I did. So we're going to really repeat the same process again, except that we're going to add in insertions after we switch. So again, I'm going to work on this side and then this side, and then these two sides. Now, you might want to explore, you know, maybe doing this side and then doing this side and working your way around. That might make a difference, and I just don't have an example for that. But okay, so we're going to do a cut here. But I'm going to do an insertion here. So you might have seen other people doing similar things to this, but if you're using a ruler, you get perfectly straight lines, and I think it's more interesting when you get a slight curve in, or you might even want more than a slight curve. Now, because we're going all the way across, you can just trim this even with the top and bottom, unlike the X. Whenever you start getting on a diagonal, things happen. Okay, so my goal here, I'm going to just cut this fabric out here. My goal here is to sew this large chunk onto this chunk. And I could sew the same piece back on, which might be a good option for some quilts, but I'm going to switch this. And again, what do I want to see in my final work? Now, this yellow is pretty bold, so I think maybe I'd like to see a really skinny piece. So I think I'll do that. So look for what you want to see in your final piece, and then scooch out that 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I love insertions because you can get the look of a tiny piece of fabric without ever having to handle a slim piece of fabric. Okay, so then I'm going to repeat this on this side, and then this side and this side, and I'll be back and show you what the final blocks come out like. I have to say I'm pretty excited about these blocks, and I think what I'd like to do is make more, pulling up some solids in the greens and in the blues. I think that could be really fun, and maybe if I have time, I'll try to do that before our next meeting together. And like I said, if this seems like too much piecing for you, don't hesitate to take one of your 9 patches and start cutting it up this way on a plain piece of fabric, because that cuts down on the amount of piecing, but you still get blocks that all coordinate beautifully together. Okay, so I hope you have fun playing with this, and next time I will show some examples of what you can do with 4 and 9 patches. Thanks for joining me. Hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying the videos. Bye.